So my journey with Fractal Audio Systems and their amazing gear started years ago when I took a chance. I had a massive pedal board and it was just getting so crazy, and I thought I either got to buy a MIDI controller and do all of that crazy stuff, maybe looper or something, like a loop system, or I could take a flyer, take a chance, and I did, and I went in and bought a used Axe-FX Ultra, and I just dove right in. And I was so happy with that Ultra that I eventually decided to upgrade to the Axe-FX 2 and the MFC 101 foot controller, and I rocked with that for years, and that was awesome. And then they came out with the Axe-FX 3, and really what compelled me to upgrade was the updated FC foot controllers. And so I did. I upgraded to that, the Axe-FX 3, and went with an FC6. And for me, that was more than enough switches, what with the master layout and switching back and forth between sort of like stomp boxes and scenes. That worked really well for me, and that was more power really than I ever needed. And then the FM3 was announced, and I smashed the pre-order button so hard that it canceled my Quad Cortex pre-order. All kidding aside, I was very excited about this product, and I waited so long to get one, and I finally got one, and I've played it for years now, and it is tremendous. However, I also pre-ordered the FM9 when that was announced, and now I've been stuck with kind of a choice. I've got my Axe-FX 3 over here, I've got the FM3, and I've got now the FM9. And I have decided I am selling the Axe-FX 3 and the FM3, and I'm gonna stick with the FM9 as my daily driver, my main rig, my only rig, and I'm gonna tell you why. For me, the FM9 is the perfect rig. It's got way more power than I would ever need, and it's got most of the portability of the FM3. Now, I can't really throw this in a backpack, but I could fit it in luggage if I wanted to, and that's portable enough for me. The Axe-FX 3 and the FC6 is just, it feels funny to say this compared to like hauling an amp around and a pedal board, but it's too big for me, for what I'm doing. Usually it's just me, and I'm either flying or I'm throwing it in the car and I'm driving to something nearby. So for me, the rack is actually more effort than this. Now, if I were building out a studio and I knew the unit was going to stay in the studio and be used by a whole bunch of people, or if I knew that I was going to be building a rack for like a touring band and we were going to consolidate all our stuff into the rack, that solution might make more sense for those applications. But for me, I'm just trying to have a simple, direct solution. And maybe once in a while, I'll bring out one of my FR speakers with me if I need to make some sound move, some air move, right? So for me, the Axe-FX, it's super, super powerful. It does way more than I needed to do personally, just as a guitar player. I'm not doing crazy stuff in the studio. I'm not playing an entire band through the rack unit. So it's just too much processing power that I never use. And the thing about the FM3, the negative, really the only negatives that I have with this are just the processing power. It's enough. For sure, it's enough. You can absolutely have an entire rig in here and gig it, and it'll be perfectly fine. I did it for a year. You will probably have to do a little bit of gymnastics to get everything you want if you want a kitchen sink sort of preset, but I was able to make it work, and it worked pretty well. The main annoyance for me personally in my rig and my flow is that there's only one reverb block. And that seems like a strange limitation. I feel like maybe at some point, maybe a software update that would just let you have 2 reverb blocks and you can run out of DSP if you want. I don't know. Seems like a weird limitation to me, but maybe not everyone is clamoring for that. The other thing that seems like it would be a big problem, but ended up not being a huge problem, is the switches. You know, you learn about the views, you learn how to use views, and you set up a custom layout. I did a video on my custom layout for the FM3 which I think was pretty good. And it got me through the gigs, and I really didn't have to do a lot of tap dancing. So 3 switches, you'd feel like it's pretty constraining. It actually totally works, but it's just nice to be able to have more without tap dancing and doing tap and holds. So for me, the FM9 really is perfect. It's, comfortable amount of switches. It's way more power than I really need ever. And this is the turbo version, just to be clear. My kitchen sink preset, which has almost everything I would ever need, it's the sort of go-to preset that I have. It's on about 50 to 60%. I'll double check that and throw it in the video in the edit. But there's way more room, way more processing power than I need for this thing. The I/O is great, the switches are great, and it can fit in luggage. Maybe not in every carry-on bag, and definitely not in a backpack, but I could throw it in checked luggage if I wanted to go fly somewhere. Absolutely could do that. I've done it with the FM3, and it works fine. So I'm not really worried about that. For me, really, all of this sort of talking nonsense aside, the proof is in the usage. And ever since I took the FM9 out of the box, I haven't used the XFX3 and I haven't used the FM9. So for me, after a while of not using the other devices, I've just sort of come to the realization that this is the perfect device for me. And I really wish that they were able to produce a lot more of them right now, because I know they're still on the wait list, and I really think this is the perfect unit that a lot of people who are getting into the game should get. If you're getting into modelers, you know what? Start with the FM3. If it's your first modeler, start with the FM3. I would say for the price, the bang for your buck, the quality of the effects in the Fractal is just really so much better. It's really hard to make it sound bad, put it that way. Like with any of the Fractal gear, you plug it in, you turn it on, pretty much any model you pull up, you get a good sound right out of the box. It's hard to make it sound bad. It really is. That's at least been my experience with the Fractal stuff. So yeah, I'm keeping the FM9. It's going to be my daily driver. It's going to be my main rig. Let me know in the comments if you're on the wait list, or if you're thinking about it, or if you got an FM3 or an XFX3 and you're thinking about side grading or downgrading or whatever. Anyways, I'll quit yakking. If you have been, thank you for watching. And remember, if it sounds good, it is good.